I'd like to thank you for joining us. We are simulcasting tonight through Facebook Live on my Restoring Main Street page, and looks like successfully, finally, you can also watch this again afterwards on the What's My Role Now podcast channel on YouTube. And both of those streams come via the Be Live app. So you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter if you search Restoring Main Street or What's My Role Now. And tonight, as previously shared on the promo leading up to this, we're going to discuss a topic that has both a national and local platform. And it has to do with law enforcement and our police departments. So joining us tonight for that discussion will be Captain Todd Pinkham of our local Rochester PD, my hometown. And we'll be covering a typical day with him, just to give you an idea of what that's like before we get into a few discussions about the national perspective on what's going on as far as defunding police departments and some of the sentiments that are unfortunately going across the country at the present day. So, all right. To kind of start this off, I just wanted to ask a quick question. What do Austin, Texas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Seattle, Washington all have in common? Well, these three major cities, they're part of a growing trend to seemingly dismantle or talking about dismantle or defunding their local municipal police departments in an attempt, they say, to bring about positive change and restore civility in their communities. If you watch any of the national broadcasts and the coverage to this point, these actions are doing anything but restoring any law and order in any of these cities. And they're basing most of their issues on specific incidents that have, just happened in the media. And unfortunately, the media and social media have been ginning up a certain narrative around some of these events. And unfortunately, before even all of the information has come in and, we can make a better assessment of what each of those incidents, mean related to the individuals involved. And so it just, to me, it's creating more of a breeding ground for just more violence and unrest, civil unrest in the country. It's just having, obviously, the opposite effect of what the intent is or what the stated intent is. So my question is, why is this happening? So, like I said, we're very fortunate to have Captain Todd Pinkham on tonight. We're going to, like I said, bring him on to discuss this. And as always, afterwards, we will try and lighten things up a little bit with our normal TOT, our totally off-topic question. But for right now, what I'd like to do is add Captain Pinkham to the live stream and start in asking him about what a typical day is for him here in Rochester and the Rochester PD. So we'll add Captain Pinkham.
Gary, thanks for having me.
No, not a problem. Actually, I'm very appreciative that you agreed to join us. So very grateful there. Captain, I just wanted to probably start off. Like I said, I was hoping to share with everybody watching just as an introductory, kind of what a typical day might be for you, because I'm sure, unfortunately, a lot of the community and communities have kind of a maybe a slanted idea of what a normal day is for any officer in any town or city, even in the state of New Hampshire, based on what they see on TV, which is nothing close to being realistic. But can you give us just a brief idea what a typical day is for you? What time do you fire up in the morning and kind of get going?
A typical day for me may not be something that you would expect. I mean, as you introduced me, I am a captain. So my roles are a little bit different than that of a patrol officer or a detective or something like that. I've held all of those roles and I've kind of moved up the ranks throughout my career. But I'm a support captain. We have two captains here in the Rochester Police Department. We have a patrol captain and we also have a support captain. So on the patrol side of things, we have a commander that oversees basically everybody that wears a uniform. I wear a uniform due to my position. However, I supervise and oversee every unit that doesn't wear a uniform. So that includes our detectives, that includes our problem-oriented policing unit, our dispatchers, and also our civilian employees.
Nice. Well, I'm sure that keeps you busy regardless.
Yeah, pretty busy job.
Yeah. Now, obviously, and I was reading in one of the local articles that I'll get to in a few minutes that you're actually a 15-year vet here in Rochester. True?
That's correct. Yes, I've been here for about 15 years now.
Okay. Even though you're in a more of a support role now, can you flash back a little bit to maybe your days on patrol? I mean, what is a typical day of patrol like in the city of Rochester?
It's the answer is not going to be as clear as I think you might be expecting, but I don't think the day or the word typical can be put in there. I mean,
Sure.
every day is different. It really is. You come in some days expecting it to go one way and having it be the exact opposite of what you were expecting. So what I mean by that is you can be, let's say on a Monday, you're investigating 1, 2, or 3 different cases. You're expecting to come in and do some follow-up on those cases, maybe make an arrest. But then while you're having a pre-shift briefing, a 3-car fatal motor vehicle accident could come in and that's going to tie up your entire shift, which you weren't planning on having, happen.
Right.
So, and that can happen with, any type of serious crime or something like that. So there is no typical day because of the variety of calls and stuff that we handle.
Yeah. So it can be a whole lot more fluid than what people realize then, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So when officers are out on patrol, is that normally the buddy system, or do you send people out in single officers and vehicles anymore? I mean, I've noticed in stops and things that I've seen that it's quite normal for another patrol car to show up on the scene of any incident. So.
Yeah, I mean, we take officer safety very seriously here, as I'm sure most agencies do. We mostly run with solo patrols, so
Okay.
1 officer per patrol vehicle. Sometimes when we have people in field training, they have to team up with somebody, so you may see 2 people in a car. Unfortunately, there are a couple of times where we're experiencing some sort of mechanical difficulties where we may have a cruiser or 2 down,
Right.
or a mechanical issue. So if that's the case, then we'll obviously we'll double up to have 2 officers in a car. But for the most part, so that we can be spread across as much of the city as possible and respond to calls as quickly as possible, we find it more beneficial in an agency of our size to have just 1 officer per vehicle.
Okay. And then on any given day, how many patrol cars are out in say a 24-hour period?
Well, due to the staffing and that we have, and with the 3 different shifts that we have, every day, every shift kind of has a different dynamic to it. So we staff it according to, we kind of look at stats like over the previous 5 years and say, well, Saturdays between 12 and 8 are these busiest hours. So we make sure that we have the majority of people on there. Or you may have this hour of the day where it's, historically speaking, from the data, is not very busy, so we may be a little bit lower on that side.
Right.
So it really depends on the day and on the shift.
Right. Now, I realize Rochester isn't a huge metropolis, although it does cover at least a decent amount of square miles. Are you given any specific, speaking from a patrol officer's perspective, are you given any specific patrol routes, or is this more dictated by what's going on in the community?
It's a little bit of both. So all of the officers that are out on patrol, they can patrol the whole city. They respond to calls throughout the city, where there's a need or where there's what may be determined as like a hot spot in the city. We'll spend some extra time in. but we have officers. The city of Rochester is broken up into 6 wards, through like 6 voting wards, and we have officers that are assigned to each of those 6 wards. So their main area of patrol is that particular ward. However, they do venture throughout the entire city.
Okay. And I know each city has its share of issues and problems, and certainly if anybody reads the local papers or is up on social media, they can see what's going on to some degree in Rochester. Is there any, like, is any one call that that seems to come up more than others, or is it always a variety of things?
It's always a variety of things. It's I mean, we on our website and stuff, we have our daily press log, for that we publish. So I mean, if you review that and stuff, you can see that it's really a pretty wide variety of calls that we handle on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Now, I know there's, like you talked about, specific shifts and covering, certain time periods that may be more prone to being busy or more activity than others. Now, related to that, as far as paperwork and everything that goes along with it, I mean, what can an average day, possibly be like for a patrol officer trying to get all of this accomplished? How long are they there at the station?
It's difficult. Rochester is a very active and busy city from a law enforcement standpoint, and a lot of what we do requires a lot of paperwork time.
Right.
We generate a lot of reports for the different types of calls that we go on. There's a lot of paperwork that goes with those reports, and depending on the shift or the day, I mean, sometimes we find it a struggle to get the paperwork done. And it seems like sometimes, especially in the summer months, you're always trying to play catch up, to get all that paperwork done. So how much paperwork time do we spend in a typical day? It can vary.
Right.
We may get that rainy day where not much is going on, where guys can actually sit behind a computer and actually get their reports done. Or we may go, 2 days without even being able to touch a report, depending on how busy we are.
Gotcha. Now, and I'm assuming that report, that responsibility ends up in the hands of the first officer on scene. Is that normal? Is that correct?
Sometimes only one officer may go to a call, so it's automatically going to be them.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the first person on scene. A lot of times it's the person that has the most involvement.
Okay.
On scene. So I may be the second person that rolls up to a scene, but I may have been the one that spoke with the most people or had the most people talk with me. So I would then take the report on that because I had more involvement than the first guy on scene.
Now, it brings up an interesting question from my perspective. Like I said, you mentioned that you're, to this point, more of a support role. Is that still the case? I mean, in other words, you're not going out on the street actively participating in some of this.
Nowhere near as often as I used to. That's for sure. However, I still, depending on the type of call, if we're shorthanded, if we're tied up on a bunch of stuff, I mean, I'm not going to let somebody go to a call shorthanded or put somebody else at risk or something. So it's not uncommon for me to go out and just try and help out or lend another hand or set of eyes on something that may be going on. Any major incident that happens in the city.
Yeah, I was thinking more the local thing. But one last thing, just to kind of clear up some of the misconceptions. Do you have, is an actual daily briefing or shift briefing go on, before each patrol?
Yeah, before each shift goes out on the street, they do meet for a pre-shift briefing to go over the previous day's events as well as the events that happened, right up until that briefing. So if there's anything important or any news that needs to be passed along, we do pre-shift briefings. Okay.
All right. Well, that sounds, like I said, it sounds like you're obviously, City of Rochester, like I said, is a very busy place in the law enforcement realm, unfortunately, I guess. But at least I think that gives an idea, folks listening, an idea of kind of what that entails.
It does. And like I said, from looking at our press log, if anybody wants to, we do post it on our website. if anybody wants to get a better idea of what we handle. But a patrol officer can handle car accidents, whether they're minor or severe, robberies, burglaries, domestic disputes, fraud, check complaints. I mean, you name it. There's many different types of calls that we handle on a daily basis.
Okay. Before I slide into more of your opinion of what's going on nationally, speaking about the public or the community in general, I get the feeling, just from being a resident, that Rochester hasn't gotten to the point where it's experiencing a lot of the sentiment and things that are going on nationally. But as far as the public goes, is there anything that the average citizen can do to assist the Rochester PD? Besides calling in on a hotline or not getting into trouble or causing an issue to begin with. But is there anything else that they can do to just be to assist the department and local law enforcement?
Well, besides those things, I mean, the two things you said, I will reiterate, because they are very important things, and the reason why I say that is because, at the end of my press releases and stuff, I'll usually add a line that says anonymous tips can be sent here, or you can text or email, hit us up via Facebook. Even if you don't want to have your name out there in something, still let us know that something's going on. That's why we offer all of that anonymous reporting, crime line tips, and things like that. Is if you see something, if you hear something, if you know something, you don't always have to give us our name. Just log on via one of those other avenues and pass along that information, because it can really, in the end, it can really help out. In a case that we're investigating, it can also may help prevent future victims falling, victim to the crime or whatever it is that we're investigating at that time. So I really encourage people to help us and to be an additional set of eyes and ears out there to report back to us. And you can do so anonymously.
Okay. So yeah, Facebook, and like I said, you've got lines that you can call in on that type of thing.
Okay. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, I guess I'm going to shift gears a little bit on you. So and try to get into maybe a little bit more of the national scene and just the atmosphere that we're kind of in right now. Like I said, being a resident here in town, just from my perspective, I don't, with all the anti-police sentiment, the defund the police, all of these topics and discussions and things going on a national level, I don't see a lot of that sentiment here in Rochester. Am I wrong in that? Do you have a different perspective than I do?
You're not wrong in that, Gary. We actually see a tremendous amount of support here in our community. We get a lot of support from businesses, from residents, from schools. So we see not what you're seeing on the news, and I'm pleased to be able to say that we just received so much support, and I'm really pleased at the amount of support that we get.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's I couldn't say that with the confidence that I do without having that same sense of community and how I see things. So I thought I had a good read on that. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something there. But
not at all.
Okay. If for some reason, and I pray this is never the case, if things shift in the community, does the department have strategies in place to deal with that, or is that just part of what normal law enforcement training would dictate anyway? But I'm just curious if we have strategies in place for those things.
Well, I mean, obviously, as I'm sure you're aware, we can't really get into like tactics and stuff like that. Yeah. But obviously, there are discussions that you have to have. I mean, every agency has to have these types of talks and try and at least have some sort of a plan or idea of how you're going to handle certain situations. However, as you know from watching the news and seeing what's happening in other states and towns and cities, there are just some things that you can't plan for. There are some things that are just going to happen, and you are going to have to, just kind of see how it goes. However, I mean, we try to plan for as much as we can that we can, without having a crystal ball. We try and think about what could happen in a town or a city like Rochester, and then, try and put something in place.
Gotcha. Now, like I said, and I started off off stream with Captain Pinkham, letting him know that if I crossed any lines, he certainly, has the option, and I know he would exercise this to not answer things. But do you have discussions frequently with fellow officers about what's going on nationally? And I mean, if you can speak about this, how do your fellow officers feel about what's going on? How do they view things?
Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. We don't all share the same opinion on some of these topics, which is natural. I mean, I don't think you're going to sit in a room and have everybody agree unanimously on stuff that's happening. We do have these discussions. I mean, obviously they're very important. We need to kind of get a feel for what our officers, where their heads are, and also kind of go over, like you were mentioning before, are you planning for these things? So they do get an idea of, what we expect them to do, how we expect them to react, and things like that. So conversations do happen.
Yeah. And can you as an officer, just, dealing with our community, with this city, are there things that that you feel that, or even your fellow officers perhaps feel that, from watching what's going on nationally, are there things that you can take from this that, are potentially useful for you, and just, dealing day to day, or something that you might catch that maybe the average person misses, in just keeping an eye on the city and what potentially, could erupt here? I mean, because it's potentially, something that could occur in any town or city.
Oh, it certainly can. And by watching these things unfold on the news and in the media and things, that does help us kind of prepare a little bit, and also have these conversations, with our officers. And do we learn stuff from them? Absolutely. There are certain things that have happened here, obviously, that we learn from. I mean, I think that's how you improve. That's how you get better. And over the years, attitudes and things like that kind of change from, an officer that may have started 30 years ago comes into has a completely different mindset than an officer who started 30 days ago. And, so we learn from those things as well. And we try and develop this agency the best that we can, and, put the best product on the road, so to speak, meaning we try and train our officers the best that we can. Certainly.
Well, which makes, all the sense in the world. And like I said, fortunately, this city, this community doesn't seem to be, like I said, in the same mindset as a lot of cities are nationally right now. And I know it's comforting for me, and I'm sure it's comforting for the Rochester Police Department as well, to know that that's something they're not going to have to deal with, at least at the present time. So,
yeah, I certainly hope it remains that way. And, you see some of that stuff that does happen out there, and, obviously you want the best, for everybody in those situations. But, I don't want it to happen anywhere, but I prefer that it happen there and not here.
Yeah. And, to kind of add something in a lighter note and a little more positive, I had added a question in my list here. Just was going to ask Captain Pinkham here about, any community events with the police department that might be coming up. And in asking that question, I certainly understand that COVID-19 has kind of put a restraint or a mask over a lot of those potential things. But we do have at least one thing coming up here on September 19th, the Paint the City Blue. This is the third year in a row that we're doing this, and it coincides with the National Thank a Police Officer Day. So that must at least give the department some good feelings.
It does. Since they started doing this a couple of years ago, I mentioned before how, our community supports us. I mean, it really shows. But, over the past couple of years on the Paint the City Blue Day, I mean, it really comes out. Seeing the blue lights on people's houses and the businesses, seeing the signs in the yard and the banners and stuff like that. I mean, it really makes you, as a police officer, it really makes you feel good when you see those types of things. And, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it, and, how much the officers, really kind of change their attitudes a little bit during that time when they see those things, because feeling that positive impact really does make a change on you.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, unfortunately, due to your job or your choice of employment, you're not always dealing with the best of what society has to offer. So I can certainly understand how that would be an uplifting thing for all of you. And I mean, the city really dives right into this because if I've got a few notes here that I mean, they run basically a contest for residents, depending on how well they decorate their homes with garland, lights, signs, anything of that nature, and there are actually prizes given out to residents. First place, $250, second place, $150, and then an honorable mention of $100. So that's from where I come from. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then, of course, on the business side of things, the city generates the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce generates a plaque and gives the business an e-blast promotion if they happen to win that particular part of the contest. So there's certainly some nice incentives out there, but I think it's just more of from my perspective, a community that really does appreciate and support the Rochester Police Department.
I mean, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but I would say the majority of the people are probably unaware of those prizes, and yet they do those things anyway. And I think I think that's great, and that's what makes us feel better, is they're doing it to show support, not to hopefully win a prize.
Right. No. Yeah. I like I said, I think it's just obviously an added perk, and from what I understand, if you want to. There was something in the Rochester Radar, our weekly publication that comes out that explains you have up until the 16th to actually submit yourself as someone in the competition. So I'll share that with you, and you can certainly find that information if you look for it online for any residents here in Rochester. But are you? Like I said, it was a limited article because of what's going on with COVID. But are you aware of anything that the city is specifically doing during that day, other than just the declaration of?
I'm not aware of anything that's going on that day.
Okay.
Unfortunately, just like every place around, we have a lot of restrictions, and just to keep everybody safe. Due to the pandemic, it's kind of unfortunate, but everybody in the world is dealing with it right now, and we can say that literally. And hopefully that changes sometime in the near future.
Yeah, we're all praying for that, I'm sure. Now, just in kind of a couple of quick questions as far as the community, whatever. But if there are any general questions that the public might have that they'd like to send to the department, is there a good place to do that?
It depends what it is, you're reporting, but just in general, like overall, I mean, I'm one of my roles is I'm the public information officer as well. I get a lot of emails, every day, reference to like random questions or people just wanting to report something, or I mean, you name it. So I have no issue with people emailing me at all. You can access my name via the website.
Okay.
Just click on it, and my email will pop right in yours. So if anybody has any questions or concerns or comments that are not an emergency, feel free to email me. There are also other email groups on our website as well. For instance, like I said, the city is broken up into 6 wards. So if you know what ward you live in, if it's Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, there are groups on the website for the wards. So you can send an email to like all of the Ward 1 officers or all of the Ward 2 officers if you have an issue going on in your ward. So say you live on 10 Rod Road and you have speeding vehicles, you can send a Ward 5 email that'll go to the Ward 5 officers that'll say, hey, there's a lot of speeding going on between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. Can you kind of hit that a little bit? Okay. So there's many different ways that you can contact us.
Yeah, I figured I'd ask that question because of just, social media makes it so much easier to kind of get in contact and share information and that type of thing. So I didn't know if there was one particular means of contact that was better than another, but thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty varied. And, you brought up the social media thing, so I'm just going to throw this out there.
Sure.
We put a lot of stuff on our Facebook page. We get a lot of tips and a lot of information via social media. But as far as like reaching out to us and contacting us with an issue or with a question, our Facebook page isn't really the best avenue. It's emailing, going onto that website.
Okay.
Because you can access anybody in the department. If you have a parking issue, you can access our parking enforcement officer through our website. Same thing with animal control. Again, ward issues, things like that. So you have much better chance of reaching the correct person in a more timely fashion by going on our website.
Okay. I did. Yeah, I certainly wanted to make sure that I clear that up because, like I said, there are assumptions made, that because of the advent of social media that everybody uses it, but on an official level, certainly those avenues that you mentioned, please, citizens of Rochester, use that instead of the social media. Okay, I'd like to take one more turn if you don't mind, and just get slightly personal, but not too. Just as far as your family, wife, kids, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have both.
Okay. How does your family feel about what you do? I mean, obviously, 15-year vet. They've learned to deal with it, but how do they feel, especially with what they see with, say, what's on the national, the national atmosphere at this point? Does it make them any more anxious or?
Well, I would say as my kids get a little bit older, they start to understand a little bit more about what's going on. I know, when my wife and I first met, I was a patrol officer, so she's kind of seen me kind of move up through the ranks and stuff. And one of my roles as a detective was I was our crime scene investigator, and I was like the lead crime scene investigator at the time. So the majority of major incidents and stuff, I was getting called in the middle of the night, midnight, 3 o'clock in the morning, 11. It didn't really matter. And she always used to joke around with some of her friends and stuff and saying, "Well, I know he's never cheated on me because whenever he gets called out, he's on the news or in the paper."
That's one way to track you. I mean,
yeah,
kind of extreme. But
yeah, no, it was just a joke. But I mean, it just gives you an example of. I mean, she they're just used to it. But now that my kids are a little bit older and they start to see that, I remember I think it was a couple of years ago we had a SWAT incident where we had like a perimeter around a house, and we had we were trying to take some tactical angles and stuff, and WMUR was there and the cameras were rolling, and there I was, and my mother happened to be watching my kids, and she's like, "Oh," so of course my kids see me in that situation, live on the news, and
right.
And as they get a little bit older now, they're starting to kind of understand what it is that what I do and what's happening.
Yeah. Now, 15 years, I'm sure, even in the small city of Rochester, you've I'm sure seen a lot. Does any of this at any point overwhelm you?
No, I mean, when you get in this type of situation, it takes kind of you got to have the right personality. I've seen some people where it has affected them. I think any agency you ask, you might run across that scenario. But as far as me personally goes, it's like I can't say that it's my job, it's what I do, it's what I know.
Right. No. Is there anything that you could think of from a personal perspective that you'd want the community to know about policing and and yourself in general that maybe they don't already know or have an idea of? And I know that's kind of a far-reaching question, but
it's not a far-reaching. I mean, it's funny that you asked that question, only because there's been times when I've had to testify in court. As I said, I was the lead crime scene investigator for a little while when I was a detective, and one of the things that I used to kind of tell jurors is ignore that CSI effect, which is what they call it. Meaning,
right,
this isn't what you see on TV. I don't have this little device where you can touch and then instantly pops up on my screen where you live, what your name is, what your date of birth is, and all that stuff. Just that quickly. Crimes sometimes take a while to solve, depending on the severity of them and how much investigation happens. It doesn't happen in an hour TV show.
Wow. You burst my bubble.
Yeah, I wish it would.
No, certainly, yeah. But I just
if CSI Miami and all of those shows want to give me some of their technology, by all means, I'll give you my address. They can send it over this way. But the reality is things don't happen like you see on TV. And not just with the CI. I use the CSI thing as an example because, like I said, that was a large part of my career was dealing with crime scene investigation. So, but it deals with shows like SWAT and Blue Bloods and things like that. That's not reality.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, it's easy enough for people that if it's not something that immediately affects them, or if they're not, don't have a family member in law enforcement, it's easy enough to come up with your own idea of what that life is like, wherever it may be, But so I kind of appreciate a little bit of that insight, and I'm sure the community does as well. So. All right, I think I've raked you over the coals. I don't know if you feel like you've been raked over the coals.
Not at all.
I usually try to lighten things up a little bit as we get through this podcast, and I offer up a section of the program that I call TOT, which is totally off topic, where I will toss a question out at my guest, and it usually, if I'm doing things right, has absolutely nothing to do with the discussion that we've previously had. So, take a sip of water, fix yourself in the chair, and see if you can handle this one. Here we go. Oh, and as always, our totally off-topic question does have a sponsor. We are sponsored by T. Roy Construction. If you're looking for any light commercial, residential, or utility work done, my friend Tim Roy at T. Roy Construction can certainly help you out. So that's 603-953-3849. Again, 603-953-3849. And they sponsor our TOT on a weekly basis here. So, TOT question for you, Captain Pinkham. It's coming around, we're getting around the corner here, very close to fall. What are some of your family's favorite, fall activities? Do you have anything that you do on an annual basis around this time of year?
Yeah, it's not like a specific place or anything like that, but we really enjoy going to various farms around we love this time of year for whether it be a pumpkin patch, apple picking, going through like different corn mazes and stuff. So we try and hit up like a variety of different farms or venues that have, that offer those things. And, I think every member of my family, we all love it and we really enjoy it. So hoping that we can do that this year. I'm not sure, obviously with everything that's going on, if we'll be able to do much of it, but, that's something that we really enjoy doing in the fall.
Yeah. Well, just, to throw my 2 cents in, as I always do each time we have these discussions, my family, we grew up taking an annual drive through the fantastic foliage of the White Mountains of New Hampshire. So that was along with the apple picking and some of the things that you mentioned, but the drive during foliage season through North Conway and up in those areas was always something we would look forward to. So.
Yeah, the older you get, I think the more you get to enjoy that. But when you have a couple of small kids, sometimes you try to limit the amount of driving so you don't have to hear, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Sure. Yeah, I can certainly understand that. So, all right. Well, Captain Pinkham, I want to thank you for your time here. I appreciate you coming on and just, like I said, giving us in the community and Granite State or anybody who's listening just a better idea of what law enforcement goes through on a typical day. And like I said, we're just very grateful here in Rochester to have all of you dedicated officers here, and very thankful, as both of us have stated, that we're not dealing with some of the same things that we see going on nationally. So very appreciative of all of that, very appreciative of you joining with me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you having me on here. I agree. I think, the more people that we can speak with and kind of get the word out about what it is we do in a typical day. I think it really helps. One of the things that I don't mean to take up your time, but one of the things
No,
that
you're fine.
we kind of felt bad about this year with the whole pandemic thing was we get a lot of value and a lot of reward from our annual police citizens academy, which we had to cancel this year. So anybody that's listening, when we do get a chance to advertise for that again and hold that again, I would encourage anyone to put in for it. I was one of the lead instructors for a number of years as part of my position, and I can't tell you how much I get out of it, how much I enjoyed it, and how much people in the class actually enjoyed it too. So, I mean, to see what we do this was just, a 45-minute segment, but the Citizens Academy usually runs around 12 weeks for 3 hours every Tuesday night when we do hold it. So you get a more intimate and in-depth kind of view of what it is that we do. So hopefully we can offer that again sometime in the near future.
No, that sounds great. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you for sharing that. I certainly want to do that. And just so the public knows, this is kind of a preview. I did ask Captain Pinkham about perhaps at some time doing a ride along, but of course, due to the factors of COVID right now, that's not a possibility. But not something that we can put totally out of the realm of happening at some point. So I will certainly let all of you know that if I get that chance and share that with you, because I think that would be something very interesting and hopefully you would all of you would find interesting as well. So.
It would be, and that's one of the things that anybody that joins the Citizen Academy does is every participant gets to go on a ride along and kind of with a different officer, and again hopefully we can get back to doing that again.
No, I think we're all praying for a little bit of normalcy at some point.
Not just for the Citizen Academy, but you're right, just for life in general.
Yeah. So, all right. So once again, thank you very much, Captain Pinkham, and I'm gonna let him go. I've tortured him enough, and you guys are just gonna have to deal with me for the last bit of this podcast. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
All right. So once again, like I said, I'd like to thank Captain Pinkham for joining us, and just like I said, sharing a little bit of what being on patrol, being an officer here in the city of Rochester, New Hampshire is like, and hopefully anybody on a larger platform that views this got a little bit of insight to see that. Hopefully, it gives you something that gives you a little bit of peace of mind to understand that not every community is in turmoil. Beyond what you consider a normal given day, week, month as far as law enforcement goes. We're not all looking to hate on the police or law enforcement or defund. So I pray that gives you at least some positivity that you can take away from this and a better understanding of what goes on as a patrol officer. So, all right, as I normally do, if I can flip the page here. At the end of the program, I usually will share with you an ending segment, something I like to call It's Just My Opinion. So we'll do that now. And I just, in keeping with the discussion tonight, my opinion, starts at the point of, with supporting law enforcement and somehow that, being in question nowadays. The serious question arises, what has changed? We just had a day of mourning once again after 19 years of what happened on September 11th, 2001. And I think back to how communities and cities and just the nation was drawn together at that particular point in time, seeing what civic servants, police, firefighters, were willing to do for the sake of others. And my question is, what has changed in 19 years? In my opinion, I don't think anything really has. And people, may take issue with that statement, but I honestly believe what has changed, and the only thing that has changed is if you think back to that time period and to now, the advent of social media, the position of people that because they now have a platform or way to speak out at any given time, that we've become judge, jury, and executioner with any subject, that's in the public eye. And I just feel it's a disservice to the country. It's a disservice to your community, to your fellow citizens, your neighbors. We used to, or I'd like to think a majority of us used to, and I pray we still do, in any given incident that we hear about, not jump to conclusions. You can make personal assumptions in your own mind, but the idea of, like I said, deciding what the events that you see on screen mean in that split second of 15 or 20 seconds of a video clip, it's a little disheartening. And I don't think it has, honestly, any place in our society, although social media and just media in general will continue to gin that up as long as they think they can get a story out of it, they can get clicks out of it. And I pray, from my own perspective, that we pause and think about that, and ask ourselves why, and why not revert back to what we know is a better approach. And I just think the way things are happening now, it needs to stop, and I pray it does. And humbly as always, that's just my opinion. All right. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. As always, I try to give you an idea of what's coming up. Right now, I've got a couple of things planned. I apologize that I haven't been out with a podcast recently, not as an excuse, but just from an informational standpoint. I did involve myself on a personal level of the issue of trying to save Spalding's Red Raider name. So that tied up a lot of my time recently, and I apologize for all of you that are faithful and kind of tune in and check to see what's going on with the What's My Role Now podcast. But I promise you, like I said, I'm working on a couple of things right now, and as soon as I can get them firmed up, I will certainly share them with you. And in parting, like I said, I always share this with you as well. I ask you to please support your local small businesses. Get involved locally. Please be the change that you want to see in your community and town. And please remember, God, freedom, and family. Without the first two, the American family is doomed. So thanks for tuning in, and